What if a single intervention could prevent a nuclear catastrophe? Let's delve into that question. Imagine the unthinkable, the devastation a nuclear bomb could cause. We're not just talking about the immediate loss of life, which in itself would be unimaginable. We're talking about the long-lasting effects, the lingering radiation that would contaminate the land, the air, the water for generations to come. Picture a world where cities become ghost towns, where the hustle and bustle of life is replaced by eerie silence. Picture a world where playgrounds are empty, where schools stand as reminders of a time when children's laughter echoed within their walls. Picture a world where the only legacy we leave behind is one of destruction and desolation. Now, let's shift gears and introduce a beacon of hope in this grim scenario: India. A nation known for its rich history, its diverse culture, and its vibrant democracy. But can this country be the one to step in and prevent a nuclear catastrophe? We're talking about an intervention by none other than India's Prime Minister, a move that reportedly led Russia to change its plans to use nuclear bombs in Ukraine. This isn't a simple diplomatic maneuver, it's a life-saving intervention, a move that could potentially save millions of lives and preserve the future of humanity. The magnitude of such an intervention is immense. It's not just about preventing a war, it's about preserving life, about ensuring that future generations have a world to call home. It's about standing up to power, about showing that diplomacy can triumph over brute force. So, we return to our initial question. So, could India's intervention really prevent a nuclear catastrophe? As we delve deeper into this narrative, let's keep this question at the forefront of our minds. It all started with the escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. As the world looked on with bated breath, the specter of an unthinkable disaster loomed ominously over the horizon. The silent whispers of war began to grow louder, echoing across the globe, stirring up a storm of fear and uncertainty. The two nations, Russia and Ukraine, were locked in a dance of power and dominance, a dance that threatened to plunge the world into a state of chaos and turmoil. As the tensions mounted, the stakes became higher. The world was teetering on the brink of a potential nuclear disaster. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the United States was watching the situation with eagle-eyed attention. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, they had started preparing for a potential Russian nuclear strike as early as 2022. Soldiers were stationed in Ukraine, ready to respond at a moment's notice. The US had also put plans in place to deal with the long-term effects of a nuclear bomb, including providing medical aid to Ukraine. The US's involvement added another layer of complexity to an already tangled web of international politics. The world was caught in a high-stakes game of chess, where every move could mean the difference between peace and catastrophe. As the world watched in fear, a surprising intervention was about to happen. As the tensions mounted, India's Prime Minister Modi stepped in. In a world bracing for potential disaster, this unexpected intervention from the Indian Prime Minister was a game-changer. Modi, a leader known for his strategic diplomacy and persuasive influence, found himself in the middle of a ticking time bomb scenario. His intervention was not just a statement or a diplomatic gesture, it was a timely and strategic move that made Russia rethink its plans. Yes, you heard it right. India's intervention led Russia to change its plans to use nuclear bombs in Ukraine. This was an intervention that not only changed the course of events, but also the perception of India's role in global politics. Just imagine the magnitude of this intervention. A nuclear attack could have led to a disaster of unimaginable proportions. The potential loss of life, the long-term effects on the environment, and the global political repercussions are too severe to even contemplate. But Modi's intervention prevented this nightmare scenario from becoming a reality. The world watched in disbelief and shock. This wasn't a power move from one of the usual suspects. This was India, a country known for its non-aligned stance, stepping up and making a difference on the world stage. The global political landscape was shook, and India's role in preventing a potential nuclear strike became the focal point of discussions and debates worldwide. This move highlighted India's position and importance in global politics, making it clear that India is not just a spectator, but an active participant in shaping the world order. Western media, which often overlooks India's significant contributions, was now acknowledging its role in averting a nuclear disaster. India's intervention had successfully averted a potential nuclear disaster. This scenario underlines the significance of diplomacy, strategic intervention, and the global role that India can play. It's a moment of reflection for the world, a moment to acknowledge that every nation has a part to play in maintaining global peace and security. The world was stunned. India's position in global politics had just been redefined. This isn't a statement one hears often, yet it perfectly encapsulates the scenario that unfolded. India, traditionally seen as a regional power, had suddenly emerged as a decisive player on the global stage. This unexpected turn of events brought a swift change in the narrative across international media. The Western media, often criticized for its Eurocentric perspective, found itself acknowledging India's significant contribution. The headlines were no longer about the escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine, but about how India's intervention had averted a potential nuclear catastrophe. Major news outlets from London to Los Angeles were abuzz with analysis and commentary. India's Prime Minister Modi was lauded for his strategic diplomacy and bold stance. The story of how a nation often sidelined in global strategic discussions had taken center stage was widely reported. The world was watching India, and the narrative had changed. Moreover, this incident brought to light the crucial role that India plays in maintaining global peace and stability. In an era of increasing geopolitical uncertainties, India's proactive diplomacy and commitment to peace were seen as a beacon of hope. The nation's ability to mediate in a high-stakes situation and prevent a nuclear disaster underscored its importance in the global political arena. But the impact went beyond just the diplomatic circles. The global community, from academia to civil society, began reassessing their understanding of India's position in world affairs. Discussions were initiated on how to engage more constructively with India and how the international community can benefit from India's growing influence. In conclusion, India's actions didn't just avert a potential nuclear disaster, they also reshaped the world's perception of its role in global politics. It was a reminder to the world that India is not just the world's largest democracy, but also a responsible and decisive global player. India had not just changed the course of the war, but also the perception of its role in global politics. What if India hadn't intervened? A chilling question, isn't it? It's a thought that sends shivers down the spine, a bleak reminder of the ever-looming specter of nuclear devastation. It is a question we fortunately do not have to answer, thanks to India's timely intervention. But it is a question that is worth reflecting upon, to truly grasp the magnitude of what was averted. Had India not stepped in, the world would have been witness to a horrifying spectacle. A nuclear strike, the likes of which haven't been seen since the dark days of the Second World War. America, foreseeing this possibility, had already prepared for such a grim eventuality. They had soldiers stationed in Ukraine, ready to leap into action at the first indication of a nuclear strike. Plans were in place to deal with the long-term effects of a nuclear bomb, including providing medical aid to Ukraine's beleaguered population. But even the best-laid plans would have been little consolation in the face of such a catastrophe. Every life saved by India's intervention is a life that would have been threatened by a nuclear strike. Every building that still stands, every road that remains unbroken, every child who can still dream of a future, these are the real, tangible results of India's intervention. Beyond the human cost, there's also the environmental impact to consider. A nuclear strike would not only have devastated Ukraine, but also the surrounding regions and potentially the world. The fallout would have been catastrophic, leading to long-term environmental damage that could take generations to recover from. In the grand tapestry of global politics, India's intervention has been a stitch in time that saved more than just 9. It saved countless lives, a nation's future, and quite possibly, the delicate ecological balance of our planet. It has shown us the potential of decisive action in the face of crisis and the power of diplomacy over destruction. Indeed, a single intervention did prevent a nuclear catastrophe.